So, Michael,
Jeremy.
I was driving in the city the other day, and there's this big billboard for the musical of The Great Gatsby.
Was it Dr. T.J. Ecclesburg staring down at you?
No, it was a whole bunch of Broadway dancing performers.
Did it make you want to go see it?
No.
I want to see it.
Do you?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Anyway, so reminded me of something I've read. I read recently. I was reading about Gatsby, and we know this novel as maybe one of the great American novels. Don't want to say the great because
A lot of people say the great.
A lot of people do say the great, and there's been a lot of attention and discussion relating to Gatsby recently because it's the 100th anniversary of the publication.
I'd even say there's been a lot of hoopla.
And I mean, what do you think of when you think of Gatsby?
Love the book.
You love the book, okay?
Love the
book. What comes to mind? What world is conjured?
What world is conjured? Geez, I didn't see that coming. I mean, it's too cliche to say, oh, parties and excitement and jazz age and all that kind of stuff, but excitement. You know, I read it in high school and I missed all the important stuff. But what I took away with me was it was exciting. Hey, I want to be on one of those parties. I want to be living it up.
Right. And so this billboard it captures that. Dancing.
Fancy people,
posh dress, cocktails, parties on Long Island, wealth, splendor.
Lots of bubbly.
Decadence, the jazz age, right? So I saw this billboard and it got my attention. I was thinking about it because a couple of weeks ago I read this thing about...
Wait, can we get back to that? That party thing is a big deal. Like people hold Gatsby parties.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Right. Okay, so I've gone through this whole process the last couple of weeks with Gatsby. I reread it. There's a Cambridge 100th anniversary edition that's come out of Gatsby. And so I reread Gatsby and I was reading about Gatsby and I am kind of fascinated by the Gatsby story. In 1940, the year of Fitzgerald's death, do you know how many copies of The Great Gatsby sold?
I know it was not many.
7 copies sold. 7 copies of The Great Gatsby sold in 1940.
You round that to 0.
Right. I'm sure more copies of the first edition sold last year. If you look at Rare Book Hub or...
Oh, yeah, that's funny. Actually, you're right.
Right?
Of the first edition, I'm sure 7. Yeah. You sell those to friends and family.
Then that made me think of Fitzgerald, the year that he dies. 7 copies sell. So what was The Great Gatsby to him? And now we know it as this modern masterpiece. In the book world, we know it as for collectors of modern literature, it's probably the Holy Grail, right? Would you say?
I don't know if there's a probably about it.
I mean, you might say Ulysses.
Oh, right. I was thinking American only. Right.
I think if you put Gatsby alongside Ulysses, I think there's more interest in a first edition of The Great Gatsby in the original dust jacket than there is, say, in first edition of Ulysses and Wrappers, would you say?
100%.
Prices are higher.
It's harder to get. You can. It sounds cynical, but you can always get a Ulysses in Wrappers.
Always get a Ulysses. I mean, we're leaving out the one of 100 signed Ulysses, aren't we? Or are we? I don't know.
We are, but I think that's more common than a really nice jacket.
Yeah,
Gatsby.
I would say it is.
And my goodness, the jacket's so beautiful too.
So the Great Gatsby is the holy grail, maybe, of modern literature collecting. For many collectors, it is, and it compares very favorably to, say, Ulysses or Sun Also Rises, or another recent contender, I think, would be The Hobbit in a pristine jacket.
Ooh, that's interesting because that's another beautiful jacket.
Yeah,
and you know what? The aesthetics of the jacket it matters.
It matters. And then this is just book collecting. But in 1940, only 7 copies of The Great Gatsby sold, retail.
That's crazy. I mean, that is really crazy.
Okay.
I love this book. And I know the sad part about that is I didn't know the 7 exactly, but I know he thought he was such a failure. I like reading his letters because, they're highly entertaining. And I know he wrote something to Zelda talking about...
He writes great letters.
Oh, he does write great letters. Okay. It's he's very honest and forthright. And he writes to Zelda, I think several times about being a failure, and Max Perkins, et cetera. And this is in 1940s. He's a failure. I mean, what are we going to say?
There's a specific letter that he writes to her in March of 1940. He writes, this is exactly what you're saying. He writes, "My God, I am a forgotten man. Gatsby had to be taken out of the modern library because it didn't sell."
Hey, No, no, that's great and all, but the bookseller in me perks up because the modern library edition is a book I want. Listen to
Mm,
this. You can see every now and then a copy comes in the market in the modern library and it has a stamp on it that says discontinued title. I mean,
mm.
that's humiliating. Imagine you're Fitzgerald at the time. You're like, oh, you know, they can't get rid. But now I want that. But I want the discontinued, and they're not that expensive. If you can't get a first with Jacket, you can get a
Yeah,
modern library first for like $3,000 with discontinued title. And what I like about that is there's a story there
yeah. Well, okay,
if you know the story. You know,
that's really interesting. But I read this, 7 copies sold, and I'm just
that
blows my
is my
mind,
that's mind blowing.
right?
I
Okay,
would guess minimal, but I mean minimal meaning like thousands.
right. And then, the book made a huge comeback the following year, 1941. It was, like, on track to now become a classic. And you know why?
Do I know why?
Let
Because
me tell you this.
oh, I was gonna come up with something really creative.
How about this? In 19
Celebrity endorsement.
No,
TikTok videos.
no. So 1947 copies are published. 1941, there's a print run of The Great Gatsby of 155,000 copies.
That is way more than sold in 1925 when it first came out, when just about 25,000 sold.
Yeah, think about the sequence. So the initial print run is substantial and sales were disappointing,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
right?
There's a great back and forth where he's begging Max Perkins for updates on sales and is disappointed with every letter.
Right. And there's a letter in which to Perkins, in which Fitzgerald says he has been living high and like having too much fun. And you kind of get the sense that he is banking on the success of this book, right?
Oh, no, no, there's even more of that. He was borrowing from Scribner's, borrowing money. And he's telling Perkins, you know what? Gatsby comes out. I'm going to pay all my debts. It's going to be great. Don't worry about it. It's going to sell 80,000, 100,000. And
Right.
because it's a great book.
Right.
That's what he was saying. It's a great book.
Great book. Right. And we'll come back to that because I want to get into inscribed copies of The Great Gatsby. But before we get there,
Oh,
yeah.
that's warming the bookseller cockles of my heart.
Right, from scribed copies of the first edition. But so the book is issued, the sales are disappointing. It does become a modern library edition, but then that's a
No, no, he had
disappointment.
to.
The year of his death, he's 7 copies, and he's a forgotten man, and it's a forgotten book in his mind. And then for some reason, 1941, 155,000 copies are printed.
Celebration of his death?
No, it was an armed services edition. For some reason, Army decided to print, and distribute to servicemen overseas, men and women, 155,000 copies of The Great Gatsby, and that was the boost.
That is so weird. You're fighting, you're struggling, you have life or death situations, bombs, whatever, and you want to read about parties in Long Island?
Okay, so then I reread it, and with this information about the Armed Services Edition, and something clicked for me.
I'd like that edition.
Yeah, that's true.
155,000 copies?
Yeah, that's cool. That is a good point. I didn't even think of that. But something clicked for me in rereading it with the knowledge of this Armed Services Edition, which is, Nick and Jay Gatsby are veterans. Nick's perspective on what you described as like the high life, the cocktails, the party, the fancy dress, telling the story. He's gone back to Minnesota and he's like embracing the boredom of the Midwest. He calls it the Middle West, I think, and he's glad to be back, like among, you know, um, the squares, I think, and he's had enough of the partying, right?
No, I think he rents his bungalow near Gatsby, not knowing it's near Gatsby, to not be in the city because he wants quiet.
No, I know, but
It's kind of funny, when you
the
think about it.
story is told. The first chapter of Gatsby, Nick is back in the Midwest, and and he is glad to be away from Long Island and all the excess and the partying and all that, and he's like back on solid ground, right? He's had enough of the jazz age, basically, the cocktails, the excess,
I
the
think he had enough of the jazz age before the jazz age, just from being a veteran, right?
yeah. Well, it's okay. It's kind of my point. That the two primary characters are Nick and Jay, and they're both veterans. And you compare those two with Tom Buchanan, who is this boastful
Oaf.
oaf, right? I mean, Gatsby has the idealism of pursuing Daisy, right? And for him, the money is just is a way to get him back in her good graces. And for Nick, he's this more detached figure, right? And there's both veterans, and I'm thinking like for the armed services,
And
you
Tom's
know,
not a veteran, you just
and
said.
Tom is not a veteran, and he's an abusive,
Racist.
racist oaf,
Oaf,
and
you gotta admit, oaf is the perfect word for him.
yeah, so the moral center of the book is Nick, and Jay Gatsby. He has this idealism that's maybe misplaced or whatever. But anyway, so I'm like rereading the book through the lens of the military edition. I'm thinking, like, oh, that kind of makes sense. You can sort of see, like during World War II, that the perspective on the Jazz Age would be one of like that's in the past, and we're in a more sober and like strained
Oh,
circumstances.
so if you're reading it in 1925 when it came out, you're saying you need some space?
Yeah, some distance, right? And so
It
the
wouldn't feel exotic if you're reading about this in your time.
right, and the narrative framing. Well, actually, did you know that Fitzgerald's initial conception of the book, it would be set in the 1880s?
I did know that, yeah.
Okay. So, like,
Yeah, I wonder if it would have worked better to his peers then.
well, I don't know. I think he did okay in the end.
Well, in the end, that's what we're talking about.
But in the end, that's the
But does
question,
that matter to him? He died a failure in his
right?
mind.
So that's the question I wanna ask you is, what The Great Gatsby to us.
Hold on
Okay,
before you move on.
I'm not moving on. I'm dwelling.
55,000 copies are in kits, military kits. They could have been ignored still. They could have been not read. So I'm presuming that soldiers read them and brought them home and talked about. Like if it was a bad book, you'd read it and just throw it away. I mean, you'd be like,
Yeah.
why'd they give me this?
Oh, no, of course. But, I mean, I think the consensus is that it's not a bad book, and it needed
Well,
a
it's not a bad book. It's a
right.
great book.
Right, so it needed a little bit of a push maybe, and it got it the year after Fitzgerald died. But so anyway, I wanna bring this back to inscribed copies because really we're talking about rare books. We're not talking about the history of American literature, are we? Or are we? Maybe we are.
Well, I know. I'm still struck by your comment that he did all right in the end.
Who did?
Fitzgerald. He only did all
Well,
right in the end if he knew that
okay,
knew about his
he did
future
how about
success.
this? That's fair.
Like,
I'm saying
I'm wrestling with that
he
because
did all
yes, if
right.
he knows now, he'd be thrilled.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He did all right in the end as a writer, and many writers do all right in the end posthumously, and that is, I think, an occupational hazard that you have to accept if you wanna be a canonical figure or a great figure, right? It might be posthumous. You just have to accept that.
So you have to accept yourself as a posthumous person.
Yeah. Well, you have to accept the possibility that all of your, efforts will be rewarded not in the great beyond, but when you have moved on.
I wonder if Fitzgerald thought that because he really did think it was a great book, but he's
Yeah.
really depressed at the end.
Okay, so let's just go back to the rare book market and forget all this other stuff. It made me think about inscribed copies because there's an inscribed copy that I handled a couple of years ago that has an inscription from the end of Fitzgerald's life, and I remember in going back and forth with a buyer about this copy, the question came up of like the inscription at the end of Fitzgerald's life is morose.
Well, that makes sense.
Yes, and it's sort of along the lines of your modern library edition that you want with the stamp on it, right?
Yeah, I want that.
Right, you do because that captures the reality of The Great Gatsby in its own period.
It's part of the story.
Yeah, the inscribed copy I'm talking about was inscribed 1939, the year before Fitzgerald's death.
He's depressed already then
Yeah,
about the book.
so it's a first printing. Okay, it's in the dust jacket. It's a second state jacket, and the inscription reads, "For Tatnall Brown, from one who's flattered at being remembered. F. Scott Fitzgerald, Hollywood,
That's
1930."
good.
Right?
That's good. It's honest.
It's honest and it reflects where.
Wait, say it again. Just say it again. I got to absorb this. That hit me harder than I thought.
Yeah, for Tatnall Brown, from one who was flattered at being remembered.
So Tatnall Brown is bringing him a first edition copy. So that's flattering enough. That's beautiful. If you like morosity as beauty.
Well, it's sad. It's a sad inscription, and it's basically this great writer who, at this moment, is not feeling so great. Is sort of, I don't know. Is it obsequious? No, but
No, I
it's
don't think
like
it's obsequious. I think it's honest.
it's honest, and like he's writing to this guy Tatnall Brown. Who remembers Tatnall Brown? Nobody.
You do.
Well, fine. But I mean, I'm not to disparage Tatnall Brown. I mean, whatever. But Tatnall Brown's a book collector, which is cool. He brings him this book, and Fitzgerald
Oh my
inscribed it.
gosh,
But at the same,
this is Tatnall Brown. This is a really important book to him, and he gets to meet Fitzgerald. Like, this is really
yeah,
exciting.
no, it's cool. But then there are inscriptions of the same book, The Great Gatsby, first edition, back to the time of publication, those inscriptions capture a very different perspective. There's a copy from 1925 where he's inscribed it to his mother, and he says, "It's a masterpiece, mother. Write me how you like it." So
Oh, see,
in
that's good.
1920, right? So
Yeah.
Fitzgerald, he's finished the book. It's about to be published. It's been published. He sends a copy to his mother, and he says it's a masterpiece. He feels great about it. And then there's this copy in 1939.
Wait, before you want to leave the mother bit, I think she might have liked it because Fitzgerald saw his mother liking it ultimately as inverse to how successful the book was. Because when Tender's Night came out, he said, Tender's Night must have some merit because my mother wasn't interested in it. I don't know if that colors the inscription at all. First
Yeah.
one.
But
Anyway, no, but anyway, come on. The book inscribed to his mother, that's fantastic.
it's fantastic. Don't you love the idea that there are these two inscribed copies, one from 1925, one from 1939, that reflect the sense of the trajectory of this book from would-be masterpiece to forgotten title. And you can see that in these.
You know what? You're reading history through two inscriptions. I do like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, those are two very different copies of the first edition. The difference between them is not just like this is an association copy and this is inscribed to an anonymous, fan. These two very different copies capture the two poles of the career of the Great Gatsby during Fitzgerald's own lifetime.
The trajectory.
Like, how often do you see that? Where you can map?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't know.
Because we
You
get
need
excited. You get excited about inscribed copies where it's like, this is a great literary association. This is a great,
Yeah, wait a minute. I have a question for you. When
sure.
people talk about inscribed copies, me being one of them, sometimes they'll highlight inscribed in the year of publication. Like
Mhm.
that's more exciting. And I take it for
Yeah.
granted that it is more exciting. I'm like, oh wow, it's inscribed in the year of publication. Why is
Yeah.
that more exciting?
Right. The 1939 copy is not more exciting, I guess, than the
No,
copy.
because it's to his mother.
Right, I mean, there's more intimacy there, but there's more drama and emotional depth, I think, in the 1939 inscription because that's
Yeah,
how
that does hit me harder.
that captures Fitzgerald's experience of his own book.
It's beautiful.
It is. It's a
Wait,
magnificent
so which would you want?
artifact. I wrestle with this. Because I absolutely believe in the 1939 inscription as a fantastic, wonderful
Yeah, there's not that
copy.
much emotion in the mother one. Write me how you like it. Okay, great.
Right, and there's suffering in the 1939 inscription.
I think I want the 1931, and I think the market would totally disagree with me on that.
I agree.
Because the headline inscribed to his mother, boom, there you go. You've got the ultimate copy or an
You
ultimate copy. Inscribed one
yes,
to T.S. Eliot, but they're all more performative inscriptions. This Tatnall Brown one is not performative. I think that's your point. That's my point.
that's my point, and it captures Fitzgerald's own experience of his own book, which it's
Yeah, I think the market would disagree with this, but I'm on board. You got me.
yeah. If you're a Fitzgerald collector, imagine you have some really gut wrenching Fitzgerald letters in your
Yeah,
collection, right?
yeah,
I mean, this sits right alongside those. Anyway,
yeah.
there's another detail that I've always found interesting. There's a handful of first edition copies of The Great Gatsby in which Fitzgerald was overseas before the publication of the book, and his publisher asked him to do a little inscription on a leaf that would be affixed inside the first edition, and they'd be
Right,
sent
because
off.
he's off gallivanting in Europe. He didn't actually see first edition copies. He wasn't hanging out in Scribner's in New York. He's bopping around France.
Right, so they send him a
France,
couple.
Italy, Switzerland.
Right. So they send him a couple of blank leaves, and he inscribes to Sinclair Lewis, I think, inscribed a copy to T.S. Eliot. There's one inscribed copy to this guy, Robert Kerr, and so this is Fitzgerald writing on a blank leaf. It says, "Dear Bob, keep reading, and you'll finally come to your adventures, which you told to me one not forgotten summer night. Your friend." So
Did
the
you
idea
say what year that is, that inscription?
that's one of the 1925 first editions with the
That's fantastic.
right, and so the idea is, and this surfaced in the trade some years ago, that this Bob Kerr was the inspiration for Gatsby,
Well, the
based on this
theory,
inscription.
yeah, based on that, right.
How do you feel about those blank leaves affixed to a first edition? Like,
Oh, that's a big question. It's a big question in our small world.
You want the ink on the page in the book.
Oh, think about this. When people say, "Oh, signed by so and so in a book," and it's a book plate that's
Yeah.
stuck there, and that is just that's not a signed book.
No,
That's a signed book plate that somebody put in. And
exactly.
sometimes
What
they
you
were signed on mass and stuck. You
Right.
don't know the story about that. But this is different because he wasn't available to sign them. He
Yeah.
did this on the order of his publisher. Okay. When you look at it, no, you know what? If I know they've been together and they were purposefully together from the get go, it only bothers me a little bit. Also, because what am I going to rewrite history?
No, this
Are you going to rewrite history?
I know. There's just for me, it's like a little sticking point. Like, I don't know, I kinda just wanted
It is a
simple.
little sticking point. This whole thing about dying in obscurity and the posthumous people and all that sort of thing. What if the military edition didn't come out?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Okay, say it died, right? And now you're strolling through and you find this old tattered copy of a book called The Great Gatsby, and you're in
Mm.
some used bookshop and it's,
Yeah.
$2.50. And you pick it up and you read a couple pages. Today, you in 2025, and you think, hey, this is pretty good.
Mm.
Or do you not think, or you're already going to judge it as some ignored, forgotten book. Like,
Yeah.
how do you approach it? Like, how do you approach it? And would you discover that because I do think it's a great book. I'm not, that's not a hot take there. It's a great book. I read it every 5 years or so. It's a fantastic book. So I have no problem that it's famous,
Mm.
right?
Can I stop you there, though?
Yeah.
I do have a little bit of a problem with the Great American Novel because what
I
set
don't
me on
like
this.
that title either.
I
It's
don't either, and
ridiculous.
I was rereading it in light of
Exclusionary.
I was rereading it in light of that because there was some discussion about that.
Terms passe.
Well, I saw also, like, all these super rich people on.
That's part of it. Yeah.
That's
It's
part
kinda
of what?
part of the, unpleasantness of that title, The Great American Novel.
Yeah, exactly, right. Okay, so let's just
We're totally agreement on that.
another candidate for the Great American Novel is Moby Dick, right?
Yeah. They're li listen, cut I don't like that title. It's
I
dumb.
don't either.
It's called a great book. It's a great book, full stop.
Yeah,
Y
okay, let's agree on that.
I don't know what that obsession was. "Oh, you have to find the great American novel." What is that? I never understood that. Convince me otherwise.
Okay, good.
Okay.
But
No, no, but no,
while
the
we're on it, Moby Dick was a book revived in the 1930s also.
my gosh, that's a good point. Okay. Oh, we love hearing the stories of, oh, Great Gatsby was revived. And then Moby Dick, as you said, the Lakeside Press edition came out with Rockwell Kent illustrations, and all of a sudden, boom,
Boom,
it's
back in.
recontextualized for a new audience in a new time. So, I mean, when we look at it now going, "Oh, the book was great, it just wasn't ready for the time," or we make fun of the time. Look at those ignorant people in 1851 when the book came out. They couldn't recognize greatness. But we, superior people of the future, recognize greatness.
But the other thing is it just depends on what's the time horizon. I mean, maybe not enough time has passed or the discovery has not been made. I mean, say in 1925 and nobody's reading Moby Dick, 1945 when both Moby Dick and Gatsby have been revived.
Yeah, but it seems accidental that Gatsby's revived with 155,000 copies. This is such a big topic, I'm a little afraid to get into it.
Oh, boy. Well, you know what I think it is? I think it's adjacent to.
I didn't even say what the topic is.
Well, I know where you're headed, and it's basically we're in the same ballpark as, like, astrophysicists, you know?
What are you talking about?
Well, they're always discovering, like,
The topic of archaeology is where I'm going.
"Oh, I thought we were doing astrophysics because it's like, they're always discovering these exoplanets or these whole new systems way out there and, like, the size of the universe has been vastly underestimated or somebody discovers dark matter, whatever. And the whole point is like, if you're an astrophysicist, you're constantly like, oh, we didn't even know the half of it. And so in terms of the history of books and, what counts as great books, like, it's the same kind of idea. Like we don't even know what we don't know. That's what I thought you were going to say. I didn't think about archaeology. I thought it was astrophysics.
Yeah. We don't know. We don't know. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll that just long dissertation you just gave me.
That long wander through the universe.
Exoskeletons. Whatever you're talking about. Exoplanets. Okay. Over the summer, I read Their Eyes Were Watching God.
Mm,
And I'm reading this and I'm approaching it as well. This is a classic. I haven't read this before. I should have read this. Why haven't I read this? I'm going to read it.
yeah.
So I read it. And I'm like,
That is a valuable book.
"L- l- ah, you're spoiling my punchline."
Oh, sorry.
So as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, oh, this is obviously a classic. It just has all the hallmarks of a great book. It's making your spine tingle. It's great stuff. And then I started reading more about it, which I did not know. It was very controversial during its time. It was I would say notorious more than popular because a lot of critics, it was really divided the critics. And there's a whole backstory about that I don't really want to get into. But then it went into obscurity. And here's my point. So when Zora Neale Hurston died, and the book came out in 1937, so, kind of the same period we're talking about. When she died in poverty. She was buried in an unmarked grave. The book was gone, forgotten, out of print. Alice Walker then in the 70s wrote an essay about it, a highly influential essay in Ms. Magazine, and it got a lot of attention. Next thing you know, there are symposiums on the book. It goes back in print. People start talking about it. And when you revisit it, with fresh eyes, you're like, this is a great book. And now it's considered a classic. And first editions, as you mentioned, are spectacularly expensive because the dust jacket's impossible to get. Copies without dust jackets are more than copies of Gatsby without a
Yeah.
dust jacket.
There was a copy last year for like $40,000
With a jacket?
with a jacket. Yeah, it was a Leslie Hinman.
I think that's a bargain if the jacket's good.
Yeah,
Seriously, you don't see the jacket.
yeah.
It's a really cool book. So here's an arc of a book. Comes out, makes some waves, sells mediocrely, disappears entirely, and it takes a scholar and fellow writer, to revive it.
Yeah.
And if Alice Walker didn't write that, maybe we wouldn't be reading Their Eyes Are Watching God now. Okay, so now all this comes down to the book I'm reading now. I'm almost done with. I know you don't want to hear about my private
I
readings,
do.
but I'm
Come
going
on,
to try.
tell me. Don't stop
But
being
I'm
so
gonna try.
bashful.
Okay, so this book I am absolutely in love with. The Fortnight in September. The whole book is about the fortnight in September, a vacation.
It's a good title.
This book, 1931, by R.C. Sheriff, whom I never heard of before. I bought it like 4 or 5 years ago because Ishiguro wrote an essay somewhere saying this is like one of his favorite books. I'm like, oh, I love Ishiguro. I'll buy the book.
Okay.
And I had it on my shelf and I never touched it until recently. I start reading, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is a classic. This should be a classic. No one's heard of this book. Not no one, but you know what I mean? And this book is so good. And it slots right in that same, I don't know, like great literary feel of Their Eyes Are Watching God and even The Great Gatsby. This is kind of like Alice Walker reviving Their Eyes Are Watching God. I didn't read Ishiguro's essay on it. I would have never bought it.
What's the first edition of this baby cost?
That's the thing. So here we go. It was a success when it came out. There's a little essay in the back by Sheriff. He's talking, he's like, he was surprised how well it sold. It sold 20,000 copies in the first 2 months.
Wow.
Beat
Gatsby.
It beat Gatsby. It was a bigger success than Gatsby.
Wow.
It was an easy success. He had no expectations for it. 1931, depths of the Great Depression. People are buying the Fortnight in September. How do you like that? So he dies, Sheriff. He had a successful book, right? And then the book disappears. No copies are being printed. Okay, you asked me about the first edition.
When he's taking his last breath, he's thinking, I made it.
Yeah. Would you rather be him or Fitzgerald? Although he died years later. The book probably faded. No, he still knew it was a success. He knew it was a success. He died, didn't know it was a success.
Huh?
I think I'd rather be Sheriff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How many people would say that? You walk up to somebody who has literary aspirations and say, would you rather be F. Scott Fitzgerald or R.C. Sheriff?
That's interesting. Yeah. I think go with Sheriff. Okay.
So anyway, but we're just talking about one book. But he also had a very successful play, Journey's End.
Cool.
Anyway, but that's not where I'm going with this. Well, I am. But being me, I'm like, I want a first edition of this book. So I look for first editions, nothing. There's nothing on the market. I thought this would be like a
auction records?
$500 auction records. This is going to blow your mind. Are you sitting down?
Yeah,
it's going to blow your mind because it blew my mind. And I found one auction record from, I don't know, 10 years ago, $20 with a dust jacket. $20. There were 20,000. There are just as many copies of this there should be as a Gatsby. And I can't even find a second printing. Like, this is blowing my mind.
All right. So now
wait. I was talking with a friend who knows the book because I was excited by it, and he bought it at the same time I did and read it and said it was great. And then I ignored that. And he was saying that he's been looking for a first edition for years. This is somebody who knows how to look for first editions.
Yeah.
So what do I expect if I should stop talking about this book? Because what if the first edition comes in the market now? It could be $20.
Okay, so now on that, as you were describing this and saying that there are no copies and there's one auction record,
I would pay more than $20 for a first edition.
Okay, so that's the question I want to ask you. So like, if it's,
I want a first edition.
Okay, would you pay $10,000 for a copy? Because for me, this is now a very interesting question because if it's a book with a real history, it was successful in its own time. It's got
just
this endorsement.
Just a good book.
Would you pay $10,000 for that in a jacket?
Okay. Okay.
You're a collector. Now, not for trading purposes.
That's what I was about to say, because you'd be like,
okay, you have a collection of books. You have your Ishiguro first editions, which are obtainable. You
I
have
do have my Ishiguro first editions actually at home. Seriously, I do. I
yeah, I
collect
know.
Ishiguro.
Right. And then other titles that are obtainable. And then you have a couple of high spots. Let's say you have the Zora Neale Hurston, Their Eyes Were Watching God, and paid $40,000 for that, and a couple of other real high spots. And
I'm
then
talking like I have this budget, first of all.
no, I know. I'm just saying,
That's part of the premise.
I'm saying hypothetical, Michael.
I like hypothetical Michael.
Yeah,
I like him better than real Michael.
I think I might like him better too.
He can be anything I want.
That's right. The hypothetical Michael is amassing a book collection, and you've got your Ishigurus, which are obtainable. You got
I bought a signed first of Never Let Me Go for $40. See, that's obtainable.
right. Some other authors and titles, and then let's say there's you've got the means, so you're putting in a few high spots. You got a copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God. You paid $40,000 or whatever it was at Hinman. You've got you're gonna have a Gatsby. Right.
Yeah.
So that's going to be.
I love this hypothetical Michael.
Hypothetical Michael.
Best.
Yeah. You've got the Gatsby in. Now, I'm saying you're not getting it in the jacket because that's.
No, hypothetical Michael gets it in jacket. That's what's fun about him.
Is it?
He's a great guy. He can find these things.
Hypothetical Michael.
Gotta hang out with him more often.
Hypothetical Michael paid $377,000 for it at Sotheby's in like 2014. I think that when they sold the Gatsby, fantastic copy, no restoration. It's not 377, something
like that. Yeah. You're within 10,000 actually.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Hypothetical Michael also has a Hobbit first edition, right? In that beautiful jacket, not signed.
Can I be this hypothetical Michael?
Yeah, obtained for no restoration to the Hobbit, and that was like a cool 135, let's say. And then there's other books in the collection, whatever. So now we come to the Fortnight in September. So hypothetical Michael has the means to stretch.
Hypothetical Michael pays $10,000 for this. Doesn't even think about it.
Doesn't even think about it.
Yeah. Well, hypothetical Michael's rich.
But hypothetical Michael,
no. Okay. Your point is it a waste of money?
Because that's the question. You're flying blind. There is no price history to justify it. But
there's no price history to justify it. But I know that it's a book from 1931 in a dust jacket, and I know it's rare. Oh, or is it rare? This is the key to this whole point. Maybe it's just not on the radar of collectors. So these could exist in used bookshops. Like, it's not on the radar of anybody. Like, it doesn't appear at auction because someone might bring this book to auction. Yeah. And Christie's will just go, I don't think so.
Yeah,
it's a $20 book.
I disagree. I think it's more likely that they're really rare because this goes back to Newton and Leibniz because it was they came up with the same idea at the same time, or Darwin and Wallace. Same idea, same period. It was in the air. So other people read this Ishiguro. Other collectors read this Ishiguro essay. Other people are now have this book on their radar and they've looked for it and they haven't found it. So I'm saying this is a rare.
The point is, though, there are tons of books out there that are rare and exciting, but are below the radar of the rare book world. So they're difficult to get, even though they may be cheap. That's number one. Number two, there are great books out there waiting to be discovered that just haven't gotten they haven't been in sync with their time, right? So that's exciting too. See, all this is good news in a way.
Yeah, good news.
Well, it's not good news for those authors who died in obscurity.
But it makes the rare book world, a seat of very exciting developments, just like astrophysics.
All right, so let's get back to your question. So you're saying, with no price history, this book comes up, and it's $10,000.
Okay, how about this? It comes up at auction.
Yeah.
Oh, it's better at auction.
Estimate $100 to $200.
$100 to $200. And the bidding, it's heating up. You're at 1,000. Is hypothetical Michael in at 1,000? You're at 2,000, 3,000. Now you're sort of emboldened by the fact that there's somebody else out there who's on it.
See, if it's at auction, you're right. Like, you think if you pay whatever, you can always get rid of it for slightly less because there's somebody else out there, not knowing that the person might not be out there years from now when you want to sell it, if you want to sell it. But it does give you confidence to keep bidding, rather than if it just appeared and said, $10,000, here it is. You know what? If I bought one, I would never look for another copy. I would pretend if anyone ever showed me one, I would say, I don't believe you. I don't even want to look. I don't want to know the existence of another copy. How's that?
Yeah.
Then I can protect myself in ignorance.
That's a strategy right there. That's the way to collect. Blinders on.